So now we're going to do some hands-on. So the first thing I want to do is everyone have your GitHub account. Okay. When you're logged in, you ought to be able to come over here to your profile page. And in the top right corner, you're going to see a plus sign. Oh. Sorry. In the top right corner, you're going to see a button called New Repository. I want you to go ahead and click that. And give your repository a name. You can't put spaces in it, so dog pictures. Very serious project here. You can give it a description. And you can initialize with a README, which is a file that tells your audience about your repository, maybe how to interact with it, how to get it set up, things like that. I'm going to go ahead and initialize mine with a README. You can make it public or private. And when you've got all of that filled in, go ahead and click on Create Repository. Cool. Awesome. So now you see it initialized. Because I chose initialize mine with a README, I have my README right here, dog pictures, and I have a button right here called Clone or Download. You click on that, you're going to see a link right here. This is a link you're going to use to clone your repository from GitHub to your local machine. So go ahead and copy that to your clipboard. Now I want you to go over to your terminal. Is everyone with me? Awesome. All right, now I'm going to go over to the terminal, and oh, I'm not sure how I did that. Live coding. Okay, if your terminal is making a strange double window, go ahead and restart your terminal. If it's not, go ahead and navigate to your desktop or wherever you want to put your repository. Ignore my Minecraft. Okay, I'm with you guys now. All right, so who remembers the command to do a clone? Raise your hand.
Git clone?
Git clone, that's correct. Yes, git clone. So git clone, and we're not done yet. Remember that link? We copied it to our clipboard. So we're going to type git clone space, and we're going to copy that, we're going to paste that right there.
If you're on a PC and you're using PowerShell, it's not going to like Control V, so just use right click to paste things in PowerShell. I think most of us are on that.
Cool. Remember, wherever you happen to be in your command line right then, when you run the clone, that's where it's going to deposit your repository. So, I went to desktop, I'm doing git clone. When you've done that, go ahead and press enter. Any issues with that? Good? Good. Okay. User error. Well, I don't want to move too fast. But if you go and check the directory where you put your repository, I put mine on my desktop, you should see a folder with the title of the repository. So there mine is, it's called Doc Pictures. Matches. If you open it up, if you initialize with your README, you'll see README. Depending on your visibility settings in File Explorer, you'll also see your .git file. That is where your record of your repository is stored. So you don't touch that, don't mess with that, it just kind of lives there. Cool. Everybody with me? All right, just raise your hand if you need help, all right? The next thing I want to run is a Git Status. Does anyone remember what a Git Status does?
It lets you know if it gives you a list of the documents?
Yeah, it gives you a list of the documents. Specifically anything that's changed, right? We haven't changed anything, so I don't expect to see anything, but live coding, you never know. Nope. So, oh, it's saying it's not a Git repository because I didn't navigate to it yet. So make sure you navigate in your command line to your repository. So if you notice, it didn't like what I just did because I was still on my desktop, and my desktop is not a Git repository. So now I'm switching over to dog pictures. And now I'll run a Git status. So I haven't changed anything in my repository, so it's telling me what I expect, which is, you're on your branch master. Your branch is up to date with origin/master, which means my local branch matches my remote branch perfectly. Nothing's changed. Says nothing to commit, working tree clean. That just means nothing's changed. There's nothing to do here. I'll show you what happens when we actually do change a file and what you'll expect to see. How's everyone doing? Was everyone able to do a Git status? They kind of say what you expected it to say? Okay, so it seems like everyone's got the hang of Git status as well as Git clone. If you need any help, if you weren't able to get your repository cloned down, just raise your hand. We've got volunteers in the audience to help you out.
Okay, I'm going to move on to Git add. So, like I said, we initialized our repository. There's nothing in it except for a README if you chose to use a README. So how do we actually get changes in there? It's pretty simple from here on out.
Oh, sorry about that. So like I said, if you've successfully cloned down, you should see everything that your remote repository contains, which at this point probably just has a README and then that .git file I mentioned as well. So let's actually make some changes to our repository so we can see what happens on the command line when we do that. I'm going to keep it simple for now, no code. I'm just going to go to Google Images, and I'm going to look at dog pictures. I'm going to add a dog picture to my repository. So, I'm going to go to my repository, and just like you would download any other file, or just like you'd add anything to a file on your computer, I'm going to save it. There we go. Now when I go back to File Explorer, I see that I have my README, that Git file, and now I have that new picture. Everything as expected, right? We've all done this before, just in our regular day-to-day use of our computers. But now when I go here, and I run a Git status, it's going to look a little different. So it says on branch master, it says your branch is up to date with origin/master. The reason it says that is because we haven't committed anything, so Git's not really aware of any differences you have right now with your remote branch. We have untracked files, which means they're not in staging, so they're in red. And I have my picture there, right there. So it's not in staging yet, it's not ready to be committed, it's just kind of there. And Git acknowledges that, hey, something changed, now we need to do something with this file. What do you want to do with this change? Now we do Git add. Does anyone remember what I do if I want to add a specific file to staging? Correct. So we just pass in the name of the file, like she said. So Git add, and then whatever your file happens to be named. So mine's download.jpg. And there we go. So it didn't really say anything to me. It executed, it didn't say anything was wrong, but I don't really know if it worked. What would I run if I want to make sure that I added that file successfully to staging?
Git status.
Git status, that's correct. So let's run a Git status again and see what happens. So it looks similar to when I ran the last time, right? Except now my file's in green, which means it's been added to staging. So changes to be committed, new file, download.jpg. So that's telling me that, hey, you added a new file to this folder, you've added it to staging, but we haven't committed it yet. What do you want me to do? So if I want this file in staging to get to my remote repository, what is that step in between that I need to do? There's one more thing I need to do. What, sorry?
Git commit.
Git commit, right? Does anyone remember how I do that? So I'm guessing it starts with Git, right? Flora?
Isn't it git commit -m with your message in quotation marks?
That's right. So let's try it out. Git commit -m. And like I said, we want everything to be descriptive. We want to describe what happens that when we come back later or when our team comes back later, we know what changed, right? So I'm going to put added a picture. Okay, and go ahead and press enter when you've got that. So git commit -m, which means message, and then in quotes, you're going to have your message. Awesome. So it said one file changed. Here's my commit message right here, as well as my commit number. Those are useful for other things that I'll talk about later. It says added a picture, one file changed, 0 insertions, 0 deletions. Great. Everything looks good. If I want to double check that all worked out, I can do git status again. And now it's telling me my branch is actually ahead of origin/master by 1 commit. That's that commit we just created. Is everyone with me right now? How many of you guys were able to successfully write that commit?
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so this is an actual trial, so it's not, so let's go back to your. We have that reservoir. Yeah. And where do you want? Yeah, okay. Let's copy that. And let's go. Okay. Now, go back and try that again. And you don't have to do the code, you shouldn't have to. Because going to do it. So I don't think so. Did you just make it? I know, I had it. I had it. You didn't get it everything. I not, I guess. I want to check. I guess I have to log in. So now, it knows, okay, cool, it's on stage. Basically, after you place it, I don't think so. Now you're out of it. Now hit Control C.
No, that's really cool.
We're in fail. Are you not in there? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Are you okay? Yeah. Oh, okay. It's fine. Okay. It's okay. Okay. So you always need like a minute. It's a bad case.
That was suspicious and easy.
You're not in that case. You're just like also and then dash N. Yeah, dash N. And then in quotes, you're gonna write this is your like your message to another curative what you're adding, right? It doesn't really yeah. Yep. Okay, now you're good. How are you doing?
Maybe that works.
Okay, so it seems like some of us ran into some problems. If you haven't set up GitHub on your machine before, you're going to need to log in through the command line. So you'll know, because it'll tell you you need to log in when you try to run a command. Awesome. So most of you, it looks like, have successfully created your commit. The next thing to do, if you want to get it on your remote repository, is to actually push your changes. So right now, your local repository knows that you added that picture. It knows that, hey, it's been committed, all of that. But your remote repository has no idea, because we haven't communicated with it yet. So the next thing we need to do is a Git push. So
is the remote repository the GitHub, or it's just another?
that's a good question. Someone just asked, is the remote repository GitHub? Yes. So your remote repository lives on the website called GitHub.
Okay.
So if you think of it as GitHub has all these different repositories and all different people working on things, yours now lives on there. And so that's what we're actually pushing to and pulling from. And when I say local repository, that is the one that's on your laptop. Yep. That's a good question. Any other questions? Okay. So the last thing I did was a Git push. Go ahead and try that on your machine. See if you can push your changes up to your remote repository on GitHub.
A bunch of, you just added React in here,
If you're able to do that successfully, you ought to be able to go to github.com where your repository lives. Remember, we saw that README that we created initially, and the description and all of that. If you refresh, it should now be aware of the commit that you just made, because now you've pushed it to your remote repository. So if I come here to our commits right here, we see our initial commit that was created when we created our repository at the beginning. And then we see that second one with that commit message that you just made. So mine's added a picture. And if I click on it, it'll give me some details about what happened. So it'll show me what changed. I added this picture here. I was hoping to look at it on GitHub. And there we go. So all we've done is made a file, we put it in our local repository, and then we said, oh hey, remote repository, by the way, I want you to have these changes too. And we did that by doing a git add, a git commit, and finally a git push. That's great, because now your teammate who might be working on the same project can do a git pull. They have the repository on their machine as well, and they can do a git pull, and they can pull down the change that you just made into their local repository. And that's how we collaborate. Raise your hand if you're stuck or if the git push didn't quite work. So now, I want to try something a little experimental. Never done with an audience before, I'm not sure how it'll go with such a large group. But I want to actually collaborate with one another. And the way we're going to do that is by using one another's repositories. So I think we've got an even number of guests, I'm not quite sure. If not, get into a pair of 3. But I want you guys to buddy up, and I want you guys to actually clone each other's repositories. Awesome. So buddy up, find someone that you want to work with. If you're still stuck, raise your hand and we'll work that out.
Okay.
And if you remember, I'm not going to show you exactly, but if you remember how you cloned your own repository, that's how you're going to clone the repository of your thread. Awesome. So everyone should be grouped up now. You each have your own personal repository. What I want you to do is I want you to share that repository with another person. The way you can do that, if your repository is public, which I believe all of yours are, you have a public profile on GitHub, so you just say, find me on GitHub, find that repository. You should be able to go to it. And just like you did with your very own repository, you ought to be able to clone it just like that. So you ought to be able to go to their repository on your computer. You ought to be able to find that link right there. And you ought to be able to copy it to your clipboard, just like you did with your own. When you do that, and you go back to the command line, make sure that you navigate backwards so that you're not inside of your own repository when you clone. So I'm going to go back to desktop. You can see right here where it says desktop, that's how I know where I am. And I'm going to clone another repository. So I don't have a buddy, so I'm going to clone my favorite repository, the bucket list. And I'm going to copy that down to my machine. So this isn't my repository. I didn't make this. I've never worked on it before, but because GitHub has open source software, this is an open source project, it means I can clone it and I can work on it too. So I'm going to scroll to the top of it. I'm going to find that link again. I'm going to copy it to my clipboard, and I'm going to go back to my command line. Now remember, before you were probably in your own directory, so you need to go backwards and make sure that you're not making your repository in your repository, if that makes sense. So I'm going to do git clone. I'm going to take that link that I copied to my clipboard. I'm going to execute. It's copying down. Yes?
So if your repo is public, how do you, so does that mean anybody can push changes to master branch? Or
No, you have to submit a pull request. It's public, so it's open source, which means others can look at your code, but they would have to submit a pull request to merge to master.
So then I would have to like approve it?
Yeah.
That was a really good question. She asked, if my repository is public and someone else can copy it down, does that mean they can just push whatever changes they want to master and just change my repository? The answer is no, because your repository is public. Other people can see what you've done, they can look at it, they can suggest changes, but they can't merge it directly into your file. So you have to do something called a merge request or pull request, and that the owner of the repository will actually approve those changes going into master. That was a really good question. Okay, so I went to bucket list, I copied the link, I did git clone and pasted the link in there and pressed enter. It says it's done, it says everything worked 100%. So if I go to desktop, I ought to be able to see that repository, and I do. Mine was called bucket list. I can open it up, and there are all the files that that repository contained, local, an exact copy, just like it was on the remote repository on GitHub. Awesome. So, and I've already tried to contribute to this repository multiple times, and he keeps telling me he has enough buckets on his bucket list, so he rejects my pull request. So I know this isn't going to work, but it'll work for you guys because you guys are working with one another. Don't ask Claire.
So,
My rival Twitter handle. Don't ask Claire. That should be my Twitter handle. Don't ask.
Okay, so what I want you guys to do, looks like we're still working on this, so I'm going to slow down a little bit.
are we just supposed to clone it?
Yeah, just clone it for now.
So what do I need
Once you have that cloned, it might take you a little bit because you're sharing each other's repositories. Once you have that done, I want you to go ahead and open their repository and make a change to it.
Yeah.
I'm going to delete the Halloween bucket because it's not Halloween anymore. And I'm going to go to the command line, and then I'm going to Git Status once I'm actually in the repository that I created. Same area stuff you guys are getting. So, I cloned bucket list, I came here. Git status, git commit. Unable to access. Okay, that's what I thought. So one of the things I should have told you, my apologies, is to make a branch after you clone. Yeah, so some of you guys are running into that issue because you're trying to push directly to master, which, as someone asked, can I push directly to master and I can just make changes to their file? You actually can't do that. So, my apologies. I'm going to walk you through how to make an actual branch first. So, if you remember git checkout, that's the command we use to move from one branch to another. So, git checkout. The next thing we're going to do is -b, which means git checkout, new branch. And then the next thing we're going to do is name our branch. So I'm just going to say new bucket branch.
Excuse me, are we doing this in the shared person or our personal one?
Our shared one.
Our shared one.
Yeah, so she asked which repository am I doing that, mine or the one that I cloned to someone else's. It's going to be the one that you cloned to someone else's. Once you do that, it'll tell you, hey, you made a new branch, this is the name. It'll also switch you to it because you ran checkout at the same time that you made that new branch. You got to be able to run Git Status. And now when you come in and you make a change to that repository, you ought to be able to push to your remote branch. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So I've got a couple of changes here. I deleted this picture, so I'm going to add that change to staging. I can't type one-handed. Now I've added them in staging, so they've gone from red to green. And to git commit. And I'm going to run Git Push. It's going to tell me, you haven't told me what the upstream branch is, so please set the upstream branch while you're pushing. It actually gives you that syntax right in the command line, so you're able to just kind of copy that and type that down here. So in in the interest of saving us time and kind of teaching you as much as I can while you're here, I'm going to go ahead and pivot to forking. So, who's ever forked a repository before? Anyone? Why are you laughing at the questions I asked? So to make a fork of a repository is basically making a copy of that repository at that point in time. So what I mean by that is I'm going to this person's bucket list repo and looking at all of the repository as it exists today. And I'm going to fork it over and make, I've already forked it because clearly I care about bucket lists a lot. You're going to go ahead and fork it, and you're going to get a little animation, kind of looks like a copier. So when you hit fork, what it's doing is actually making that copy of that repository in your own GitHub account. I'm going to copy it to, let's not do it to Creative Market, I don't think my boss would appreciate that. But I'm going to do Women Who Code GFW. Yeah. And so you get this cute little animation, and it looks like it's on a copy machine, because that's basically what you're doing. So you're copying someone else's repository over, and now you have your very own version. So you'll see your username right next to it. Mine's Women Who Code GFW, and then you'll see the repository name. It looks identical to the other repository, except you own it. Has everyone been able to do that? I have pull requests? From who? Oh, okay, I have no idea. How mysterious. Just Lou and Claire both grinning. Fixed bad picture bug. Okay, so Claire over here has made a pull request into my dog pictures repository.
You're welcome.
And it just says you're welcome, and I'm not, what did you change? I see one commit in here. Did you just delete my dog picture and replace it with another dog picture?
If only the names of the images were shown somewhere.
Wow. And I have a picture of Claire's dog instead of a generic Google dog. Okay, so she's made a pull request into my repository. I own it, so I get to decide what goes into my repository, what changes are allowed. So where did it go?
You have another one here.
Oh my gosh.
Up top.
Up top, yeah. Burrito pictures number 1. Pictures of Burrito the Wonder Dog. So both Lou and Claire have dogs named after food. Total coincidence. Like they got their dogs before they met one another, and then they met one another. My dog's name's Pancake. Oh, mine's Burrito. Yeah, totally normal. Yeah. So I've got a picture of her dog in here too now. So I'm gonna decide, yes, that's cool. I'm gonna accept that. Accept the merge request. Confirm merge. And that means I'm saying, yes, you can merge those changes into my repository. I accept that picture. Now your change is part of the main repository. So now I can go into my dog pictures, and I see a whole folder dedicated to Burrito. This is picture number 1, burrito_model.jpg. Burrito poops, I'm not going to open that one. Burrito snuggles. Aww, that's great. And so I didn't add these myself. Lou added these, and she made a pull request, which is basically saying, hey, I made these changes. I think they'll improve your repository. Will you accept it into your repository? And I said yes, and I merged the pull request. This is how collaboration happens at big companies, open source projects, and things like that, when you're trying to work with more than one person at a time on the same set of source code. Thank you for that, both of you. I kind of want to reject Claire's suggestion because she deleted my dog picture. It wasn't enough to add hers. Okay.
It was a bug. I fixed your bug.
That was not
All right.
a dog, that was a dog.
It was named Download. Okay, so your dog named it.
Like you wouldn't get.
Okay, we had a goldfish named Pixel for a while. And what happened to the office goldfish?
It's still alive.
Oh, okay, it's still Pixel the goldfish is still alive, or beta fish. Okay, So there's not a reject button. I was really looking forward to that.
Just close pull request.
I'm just gonna close the pull request and be like, nah. I don't want those changes in my repository. I'm just gonna say no. I close this. Sorry, Claire. You're not allowed to have your dog. I'm not allowed to add buckets to the bucket list. It's a tough world. So here we go. So now at least, I was hoping we could do hands-on where you could actually experience that firsthand. I'm not really sure what happened there, but thank you, Lou and Claire, for helping me out there so I could at least demonstrate that's how a pull request works.